Let the record show that the regular Riverview City Council meeting was called to order at 7 p.m. on September 18th, 2023. Will the clerk please take roll?
Councilmember Blanchett. Councilmember Ganaga.
Here.
Councilmember Norton.
Here.
Councilmember O'Neill. Here. Councilmember Robbins.
Here.
Mayor Swift.
Here.
Councilmember Workman.
Here.
Let the record show that Councilwoman Blanchett is excused. Tonight we have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilwoman Ganaga and the invocation by Councilman Norton. Will you please rise?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we ask you to please continue to bless us, our city, our country. We ask you to keep our employees safe, and we'll give you the praise and glory for it. Amen.
Okay, Jeff, before we get started, do you have any announcements?
Yes, Your Honor, we do. Mr. Todd Dickman in Recreation.
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to let everyone know or remind people that this Saturday is going to be our 100th anniversary celebration. It's going to be in Young Patriots Park from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's going to be a family event that, with many things going on for the kids, with Touch a Truck, classic car show, some inflatables for the kids, a couple little shows. We also have a band playing during the event, and also we're going to have some presentations of some things with Riverview, with Oldest Tree, Oldest House, and a couple of other things that is going to be hosted by our very own Bob Guinea for that. So hopefully people can make some time on Saturday and come out and enjoy the 100th celebration. Also, just want to let everyone know we're quickly coming up on our garage sale for the fall here. So September 29th through October 1st, next weekend, is going to be our garage sale. No need to register for that. You just need to set up and sell at your own house. And also, our youth basketball registration is opened up today. So any kids that are looking to play basketball from 3rd to 6th grade, you can register online. Thank you.
Thank you, and I would thank you for that, Todd. I would like to add that also part of the 100-year celebration, the committee is recreating the a paper. It's called the Riverview Review, and that was the paper that had the headlines of when the village of Riverview became a city. So we've been working with the Register people to recreate that paper. I'll give you a little sneak preview of the front. It's like a throwback type paper. So with that, I would like to thank the sponsors of that, which would be Randy Pentock's office, Charles Range Engineering, Tetra Tech, and Pure Mall Pharma Solutions for footing the entire cost of putting that paper together. That will be available at the celebration itself. And then what extra copies we have, we'll have them available at City Hall, the library, and the clerk's office and stuff like that. So good luck with the celebration there, Todd. Anything else?
Your Honor, Chief Allen in the Police Department.
Thank you, Jeff. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Once again, the first responders and residents, we paired up with the fire department. We're going to be out at Lloyd Carr Park this Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. We'll be out there for a conversation with anybody that wants to speak with us. Also, Faith in Blue this year, October 7th, from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m., we're going to be up at the Kroger's on 4th Street along with the Southgate Police Department. We're going to hold a food drive, and we're going to collect food, and it's going to be donated to Fish and Loaves in Taylor, also the Detroit Rescue Mission Ministries. And then lastly on my list, I received a letter from the Chief of Police in Gibraltar thanking our office. On September 1st, approximately 6:18, there was a possible robbery in the 29,000 block of Meadow Lane. They requested our assistance. We sent over Sergeant Bruce Herrick and his partner Blue. They assisted, and due to the teamwork and cooperative efforts from our department as well as theirs, the scene was quickly secured, and several suspects were taken into custody. He just wanted to thank us and ensure that this is exactly what mutual aid is for, and appreciates our help. Thank you,
Chief.
Your Honor, one last announcement. The Riverview boat launch is under repair. It started this morning, and it should be completed by the end of the day. It needed joint seal crack filling, and seal coat and striping. So it should be done by end of business day tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other announcements? We have no awards and presentations. Now approval of minutes. Approve the minutes of the 8/21/23 and 9/5/23 regular Riverview City Council meeting minutes and the condensed version for publication. What's council's pleasure?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Support.
Motion by Councilman Norton, supported by Councilwoman O'Neill. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Yes.
Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Workman.
Yes.
Now's the time for the public hearing that everybody is here for. 6.1, conduct public hearing on creation of proposed police protection, public safety special assessment levy roll as allowed under Public Act 33 of 1952, amended. I'll read the background so you can get a little more understanding of what this is all about. On June 19th, 2023, the City Council authorized and directed the city manager to prepare cost estimates for the police public safety special assessment for the Riverview Police Public Safety Department. These cost estimates have been prepared and shared with the City Council and filed with the City Clerk. The cost estimate of up to $1.544 million, which equals 4 mills, is to be used for the purchase of police motor vehicles, apparatus, and equipment, and to defray the costs of maintenance and operations, including personnel, of the police department for a period of 10 years. For purposes of funding these costs and expenses, the City Council has created a special assessment district pursuant to Public Act 33 of 1951, as amended, against which the estimated costs and expenses will be assessed. The special assessment district will encompass all the lots, parcels of land located within the City of Riverview. A public hearing must be held to allow comments on the proposed police protection, public safety special assessment levy roll. Notice of the public hearing was published in the News Herald on August 30th, 2023 and September 13th, 2023. In addition, the public hearings were mailed to all property owners located with the proposed special assessment district. All parcels of land situated in the City of Riverview, County of Wayne, and State of Michigan are subject to the proposed community-wide ad valorem special assessment in a column provided on the regular tax roll. The City Council declared its intention to undertake an ad valorem special assessment to be used for purchasing of police motor vehicles, apparatus, equipment, and to defray the costs of the maintenance and operations, including personnel, of the police department for a period of 10 years in the amount of $1.544 million, which equals 4 mills. Action requested, City Council has requested a public hearing to allow comments on the proposed police protection public safety special assessment roll in accordance with Public Act 33 of 1951. So what this means is we are looking for your input on the special assessment, and just so everybody's clear, it does include everything within the City of Riverview. And we're also, and just so you'll also be aware of, we're still in the process. I think tonight we're going to be awarding a contract to a firm to help us get the education out in the community, all the costs, what it means, what happens if it does pass, what happens if it doesn't. So you can educate that. But for tonight, we're just looking for your input on the millage itself. And this is something that the community will be voting on. It's not the decision we're going to make on our own. We want to educate the public and then let you guys make the choice. So with that, anyone wishing to address the mayor and council on the public safety issue only, this does not count against your time for public comment later on. So if you want to address the mayor and council at this point, please approach the podium, state your name and address to the record. Try to keep your comments to 5 minutes. There is no sharing of time and no rebuttals. And please be respectful. Yes, sir.
Bill Toll, 17861 Devonshire. Good evening. The city manager estimated that the city's post-closure cost account had approximately $20 million, but the state informed city officials that account will need $33 million at the time of closure. In short, no funds will be available to transfer to the general fund from year ending 2024, if I understood him correctly. To satisfy the shortfall, he recommends a 4 mil increase that will generate $1,544,000. The entire cost is being placed on the back of the residents, which have already seen a 3.2 mil increase in the last few years, in addition to a substantially increased assessed valuation on their property. First, I oppose a special assessment for 4 mills for 10 years. There are other options. Any special assessment should be no longer than 2 or 3 years and no more than 2 mills until the following options are evaluated. First, there has been 7 licenses issued for marijuana facilities in our community, with another 2 pending. Based on last year's, the state's dispersed $51,800 per dispensary. They should be all up and running in 2024, and based on that, that would generate $362,600 of revenue for our community, which they would receive in 2025. Secondly, hold off on hiring 2 new officers, one for the schools and one for the airport, and that will reduce costs by $320,000 based on the average officer's cost in the current budget. Just hold a force of 23 officers. 3, the yearly license fee of $5,000 for each one of those 7 dispensaries would total $7,000, not including the 2 pending applicants that may or may not happen. You need to get with the assessor, have him estimate the increase in property tax fees that each dispensary would generate in property tax revenue. He can touch base with each company that was issued a license and see what they have budgeted to calculate a reasonable estimate for property tax increase, depending on what improvements that will be needed to the existing building to meet state or local requirements. To project an increase in income, I'm just guessing at an average of $5,000 per dispensary, which would increase revenue by another $35,000. Since we are fully staffed in the police department, maybe we could reduce the overtime from $244,877 to around $200,000. We could take revenue from the gas project for 2 years only, then revert that revenue back to either paying down the OPEB or pay down the shortfall in the closure costs for the landfill. It will be up and running in 2024. DTE committed that the city would receive a minimum of like $400,000 a year. These 7 items total $1,196,600. And if the 2 pending licenses result in 2 more outlets, you could add another additional $123,000, or a total of $1,320,000. Legal fees for the landfill could be reduced from the $220,000 to $110,000 if the city is not going to move forward with a landfill expansion request under the Eagle approach. That approach would increase the height, but not the footprint, but the footprint would remain the same. And that would eliminate a lot of the arguments of those opposed to the prior landfill expansion request. If the city plans on moving forward with the expansion under the Eagle approach, you would need the full $220,000 in legal fees for the landfill. We could reduce the labor relations fees budgeted at $150,000 by 75% to $37,500. That would save approximately $112,500. Since all contracts are settled and we hired a human resource officer that should be able to handle any grievances or labor issues. These 2 legal fee cost reductions potentially could save another $220,000.
You have to wrap it up, Mr. Toll.
Okay. The items I referenced total $1,504,000. Another option we can do without approval is use the golf practice area for additional capacity, which would not require approval from anyone, and use those funds to pay down the shortfall in post-closure or allow our community to still receive revenue from the landfill for several more years.
Thank you.
That should also be placed on the ballot along with any special assessment.
Thank
Can
you.
you give me another minute? I'll have to be back under,
I can't do it for everybody, so I
Well-
gotta stop it here.
I'll be back under
All right, thank you.
public comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Ken Kyleman, 20243 Coachwood. Looks like we're going to need a bigger room here. That's a good thing. We've got an election coming up, and I may be in the minority, but I believe the city's headed in the right direction. We're finally accepting the fact that the landfill cannot continue to receive waste forever, and we need to responsibly prepare for its long-term care while addressing the financial shortfall its closure creates. Riverview has benefited for years from the landfill in many ways, not the least of these is being some of the more attractive property tax rates downriver, and the bill has finally come due. The closure of the landfill is not properly funded, and the financial impact on its residents has been accelerated as a result, but I believe it's not nearly as bad as many have led us to believe. Over the past few years, it was not uncommon for the landfill to provide what would have been the equivalent of 8 or 9 mills of property tax revenue to our general fund. Thankfully, attention has been brought to the issue, and in our most recent budget, the contribution from the landfill has been reduced to the equivalent of approximately 4 1/4 mills, nearly cut in half without seriously impacting our quality of life. But more still needs to be done, and any cutting that would seriously contribute to our need would be more than most of us would be willing to put up with. The only real solution is a tax increase that will complete the job that our city manager has already started and eliminate our dependency on the landfill for the operation of our city. And the proposed public safety initiative is, in my opinion, a well-thought-out, flexible solution to our problem that will still leave our property taxes competitive with our downriver neighbors. I encourage everyone to ignore a lot of the facts, supposed facts that are out there, and get the true facts, as they say. I do have one question, though, that can be answered later on, possibly at the end. My understanding that this is an up to 4 mills per year, that when the budget is being put up, if there's no need for it, you don't need to put it out there, but if there is, then you could assess it. I think that's up to you folks to do. If I'm wrong on that, correct me, please. And the other is on the number of cannabis dispensaries. My understanding is that by the end of this month, that's when the count is determined as to how much money the city will get in 2025. I don't know how many are going to qualify at that time. If somebody could give us some information on how many will qualify at the end of this month to be able to provide the city funds early in 2025, that'd help the conversation a little bit. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Sebastian Valletta, 18448 Yorkshire Court.
Speak into the mic so we can hear you. It's tough up here. Thank you.
Sebastian Valletta, 18448 Yorkshire Court. I was here a couple weeks ago when you originally had the meeting on this, and I guess this meeting is to protest it in case you want to go to the state tribunal, right? According to the letter, that's what it said. So I want it on record that I'm here to protest that. But what I'm kind of concerned about, out in the hallway, you have a poster where the landfill generates $3.5 million, and it pays for the fire department, police department, and a few other things. Then here you guys are telling us that you don't have that kind of money. So which is true? You either need to take that poster down and explain to the people exactly how much money you're getting. But in the last 2 years, I noticed you put garbage pickup and using Act 33 was a good way to, because nobody's going to vote no on fire department, You're using this stuff to balance budgets. And basically what you need to do is stop spending more money and try to balance the budget with the money you have. That way you don't have to lie to the people and tell them that you need to money because the police department's already funded. You're just taking money away from them, using it other places, and using Act 33 to generate more money for the city itself. So you need to be honest about the situation, not to lie about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening. Darren Sinset, 17820 Brinson Street, Riverview, Michigan. I'm celebrating my 25th year in Riverview. I want to read a quote to you, if you've got a moment. I predict that the future happiness of Americans, if they can prevent the government from wasting laborers of the people under the pretense of taking care of them. You know who said that? Thomas Jefferson. When we pretend that we're going to take care of you by you using your hard labor money, that's not what government's supposed to do. You're supposed to be, as government, you're supposed to be statesmen, where you're here to take care of us because you care about the community. Some of you donate your money that you receive, and I understand that. And you take this position. I want the police department to have everything they need, but don't use it off the backs of people. This coming year is going to be the worst year we've seen in a long time. I've been talking about this. A lot of pastors I've been getting together with. Whether you believe in prophecy or whatever, what's going to come true or not, we're in a dire strait right now. Government's going to shut down at the end of the month. It's going to happen. Big Three is on strike. That's happening. China's going to invade Taiwan. That's going to happen. Oh, by the way, COVID's on its way back, even though no one has this strand of the virus yet in the world, in their body. That's not my words. That's the guy that invented our DNA. Robert Malone, the scientist. He said that just a few days ago. How much do we spend for attorney's fees for the city? I think it's $1 million. Did y'all know that? Did you know that the city council has not received a quarterly report on the financials for the past 15 years? But yet they have to miraculously figure out how to balance the budget. Council, I ask you, before all these people, have y'all received a quarterly report since you've been on the council? And who violated the state law by changing that? Because the state law says you have to do it. We got corruption here, folks. I know this is 25 years I celebrate in Michigan, in the city of Riverview. It breaks my heart to bring this before everybody. We had somebody knock at my door about the election for mayor. And I shared it with the mayor. I called him. And he started spreading lies about the mayor's competitor, saying that he was involved in something else. Why is all this dirt going on? Now, if you want to know what landfills, Mr. Mayor, you know, my dad and I, our family, we sold 100 acres for a major landfill in Louisiana. So I know the ins and outs of landfills. I know where the money hides and where it doesn't. The tipping fees. I care about this community. I'm not saying this to throw stones at not one of you. Mr. Mayor, you and I are friends. We ride motorcycles together. We rode somewhere together and had lunch. It's just the point I'm trying to make is something very, very wrong is going on here. And we had to correct it. Because you know what? Pretty soon you're going to pull the carpet up from that rug and you're going to see the trash that was there. And I'm not talking about the landfill. There's a good old boy system that's been running this city for a long time. When people can come out and put in my neighbor's yards signs didn't ask permission, but they put it in their yards. That's wrong. Let's show some decency. We're a great city. We are a great city. I think you agree, right? Let's change this fragrance because it's going to get worse. Because there's going to be a financial crunch. And guess what? Yes, Powell said they're probably going to raise interest rates again. So what does that mean? Inflation's coming. I manage a $16 million store. That's what I do. I get quarter reports. I have to make sure that everything is run efficient. Why hasn't our council been informed? And how can you make a good decision if you don't have that? And don't tell me we're going to do it in the future. Do it now. Demand it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Sally Sutherland. I live at 14395 Hamilton Street. And I was here for the first assessment meeting as well. And my opinion has not changed. Due to the mismanagement of funds, I cannot agree with the assessment as well. And it's not, again, that we don't back up our police department, because we absolutely do. And we do want them to have the best equipment possible because they protect us. But again, when there's so much mismanagement and so much things going on in this city that we don't know about, and it appears like last time when we asked questions, everyone on the council said they didn't even know about where some of the funds had gone. There's no way we can support that. And you just said, how much did you say you were going to spend on educating people about the assessment? What was that figure?
Do we have a figure on the...
You said you were going to spend on educating people about the assessment?
I want to make sure I get the number right. 25,000.
Why are you spending $25,000 on educating them?
Because we have to do it in the best way we possibly can to get all the information out, and we found that professionals can do that much better than we can.
And you're going to do both the pros and the cons, I take it?
Well, what we can't do it. We can't oppose, or just so you know, we can't oppose or support the millage. We can only educate the effects of the millage and how it works.
Okay. And I too have lived here since I was 12, and I'm 68 now, so I've lived here a long time myself. And I've been here. I've lived in the Colonial Village, and I've lived in the Forest. So I've lived in, all through here, almost all through my school years and everything else. And I've been here through good times and bad times. But right now, I think we are in a bad time. And I do agree. I have never really been that active on Facebook, but I am now, because I do totally disagree with everything a lot of things that are going on now. And again, there's no way I can vote for an assessment when we have so much mismanagement going on of funds right now that nobody seems to know where they went. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Didn't mean to take cuts. My name is Robert Stark, 19032 Stonewood Road. I'll be brief in that I support our police, I support our fire department. I've had opportunities in the 10 years that my wife and I have been residents here to have nothing but great and professional interactions with them. And I would agree with the other speakers here that they certainly deserve our support. That being said, there's also the additional cost that this is going to come to the citizens here. And as I can see around me, I know I'm not the only senior citizen in the audience. My wife and I are both retired. We collect Social Security, and I cannot call Social Security and say that my taxes went up 4 mils, give me some more money. We did get some increases for the inflation rate, But I think any of my fellow citizens that are collecting Social Security can tell you that that certainly hasn't kept up with food and gasoline prices. I understand and appreciate the additional pressure that this puts on the city, because not only are we paying more, but so are you. I understand that. And so as a resident, my wife and I, when the expenses grow due to inflation and other issues, maybe some repairs to the house or whatever, then we look at ways, what can we do to cut back? What can we do to save money so that we can afford food in our refrigerator and on our tables, to heat our homes in the winter, which are predicting a really cold one this year with El Nino. It's a situation that I understand and I'm sympathetic with. However, with the additional costs, the additional assessments that have been done over the last few years, I would humbly request that you find a way, just as all of us find ways to save money, to do what we need to do, that the city finds a way to do that as well. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Holly Kozlowski, 17503 Bedford Street. And that's real similar to what I was going to say. You know, we're losing the landfill is what it comes down to. Equivalent maybe of a household losing its a main job, right? Maybe dad just lost his job. Dad loses his job. We don't cut out health insurance. We don't cut out the security of our home, right? We shouldn't have to even worry about whether or not our police and fire department are getting the funds that they deserve, because that should be the first thing that we take care of. You take care of your home first, okay? Now, if we can have things like Summerfest or Winterfest or a tree lighting, those are extras. Those are extras. You want to pull out $4 million on something? Pull out $4 million on your extras. Don't threaten our police and fire.
Anybody else?
Good evening. Brian Webb, 20271 Maplewood. I'm actually going to echo a couple of sentiments from Mr. Deletta and Mr. Toll. So I really had 2 points that I wanted to bring forward. I was at the last special assessment hearing, and so to Mr. Deletta's points in the letter, it mentioned that we would have to be here to protest the special assessment for owned property to go to the tax tribunal. And I'm not quite sure what that all is about, and I can wait till after to hear an explanation if we have to oppose that this evening or if there's a later action we can take. So that's one point. The second point is again echoed by Mr. Toll, is in the last hearing I asked about and got the assurance from council that everybody did their due diligence before selecting option A, which is the 4 millage increase. As you may recall at the Plant Moran revealing of the budget, there were 3 options made, A being the 4 mil increase, B being the Headley override, and 3 was just only alluded to, but we agreed at the last meeting it was probably budget cuts. So I can see where it's easy and you know, probably the preferred choice is to go with A, the 4 mils, and have that stated as a sliding millage back and forth, whether we need 4 mils one year or 1 the next year. So it's a good sales pitch, but I'm still not confident about the Headley override and if that's off the table and what it actually means as an option. So I've reached out twice now to our city assessor, Eric Dunlop, and had conversations to better understand the Headley override as well as doing research on the internet. And what I don't understand is why that was proposed as an option is because our public safety assessment is part of our general millage, which is, I believe, around 14 mils, correct me if I'm wrong. And I had asked at that last assessment, well, how much of that millage is actually for public safety? And it's not known because it's part of the general millage. Whereas our fire department has its own millage, the library has its own millage, et cetera. So if we were to do the Headley override, I think Mr. Dobek, you gave a great example of how much revenue that would actually bring in based upon the millage. But one of the interesting statements from our assessor is that we would have to know what the original millage was to know what it'd be rolled back. So as we know with Proposal A and the Headley override, as our property values went down in 2008 and 9, so did our expenditures that are going towards those millages. So the Headley override would bring it back to what the original millage was. But he said that would be in the city charter. I've looked through the city charter, and there's no mention of what our original millages were. So he asked me to bring it forward to our city clerk, maybe that Mrs. Hutchinson could find that information for me and the public. So that would be another question. What is the original millages? And is the Headley override really something that we're not going to explore anymore? Again, we don't know how much of that would actually go to the public safety. So that's one of the sentiments I've been hearing from the public, is that you're focusing on the public safety, and God forbid, I don't want to cut the police department's funding, but it's always been stated that this is a public safety assessment. So if we get these 4 millages, does that go on top of the 14 mills that we're already paying for the general mills? So we'll be paying 18 mills, and part of that money then goes to public safety. And how is the public assured that that 4 mills that's going into the general fund is going to be spent on public safety and not pilfered for some other department? So that's another type of question I have. So really, those are some questions, open-ended, and I'm hoping that, I'm sure you said there's going to be an educational efforts made so that the public can better understand before we get to the voting. And am I clear that this is February that we'd be voting on this?
It'd be late February, early March. It all depends when the presidential primary is.
Okay, so it'd be during the presidential primary. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm going to keep my comments brief up until public discussion. I wanted to echo something Brian just mentioned, and I'd caution all the residents to pay attention to what Brian had said about the sliding bar on the city will only tax you on what it needed. It could be 1 mil, it could be 4 mil. When was the last time you gave government money and they gave what they didn't need back? I've never seen it. Like Brian said, if you're going to use the word public safety millage, it should damn well go to the public safety millage. It should go to the public safety. I do not trust government to hand me back any money that they say they don't need. So that's one concern. The second concern I have is we're going to spend $25,000 to educate the public. The last time the city educated the public on the landfill, does anybody in here not believe that survey was biased? So I'd like to know who's drafting this education piece. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening. Donna Laif, 18317 Yorkshire Drive. I'm sorry, I'm very nervous, but I think it's important to make these points. I recall June 6th of 2022, watching the council meeting from my home the following day, where council needed to balance the budget by June 30th of that same year. We had lost $600,000 in profit from the landfill. There seemed to be a split council after many questions. 3 council members voted to put a 1.74 mil on the November ballot for the residents of Riverview to vote. The balance of the council voted in opposition to that decision. Mayor Swift announced that it would be difficult to balance the budget by 6/30 of '22 without 1.74 mills. I followed up with a few emails after that meeting, trying to understand why 3 weeks prior to a balanced budget being required or necessitated, we were looking for funds, and why it was decided at such a late date to tax the residents. I got a few different responses, which it's really not important to go into right now. Mayor Swift questioned me on my choice of words, saying why was the decision left so late in the planning process. I think 3 weeks is not adequate. That's my personal opinion. I guess I was shocked when we got our tax bill in August of '22, and there is a rubbish fee equal to 1.74 mills. My rubbish used to be part of the operating budget of my taxes, the operating expenses. So am I paying twice for rubbish pickup now? Once under the operating expenses and second under the new mill? It was also presented in that meeting that there would be curbside recycling. And there would be education of the residents to make sure that there were no greasy pizza boxes, quote unquote, thrown into the recycling materials, thus contaminating that portion of our recycling. With all of that, it makes me very suspicious of another requested tax increase. During that June meeting and subsequent meetings thereafter, there was a lot of excitement reported at a meeting that I can't remember if it was a $55,000 or a $59,000 grant was awarded to the city to assist with the recycling efforts. I ask, since we're not curbside recycling, where did that grant go? And at the August 14th meeting on this very subject that we're all here about this evening, it was mentioned by the city manager that we would have opportunities for grants moving forward to help possibly bridge the monetary need from our residents so that we may not have to go up to the total 4 mil. If I don't know what happened to the grants from recycling that never happened, how can I trust that we will have adequate grants to support the public safety? So I am very unhappy that it seems as though this has been presented as the only option, but everyone keeps referring to option 1, option 2, or option 3. At the August 14th meeting, there was very little information given when asked by other speakers at this podium what option 2 consisted of and what option 3 consisted of. So I would like a whole lot more information about what all of my choices are before we just jump to raise my taxes. Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, we do have 3 that I would like to read into the record.
Hi, I'm nervous too, but I just want to say that.
Just and your name and address. Don't be nervous. Just give us your name and address.
Okay, Kimberly Roth, 14019 Berkshire Street, and we moved in 2 years ago, and And now, as far as our police department, firemen, military, my family and I, what's more important to us than money is prayer. And we pray for them daily, but as, people that are struggling in this day and age, when we saw our property tax, we were shocked as it is, but it is what it is, and then to have it raised is just like my husband's on a fixed income and we're struggling as it is. So, I just wanted to put my 2 cents in and let you know how we feel about that, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. I do have 3 that I would like to read, but before I do want to thank everybody for, I know it's a very serious subject, and you all did very well presenting your sides, and I know all of us took lots of notes, and we're going to see if we can get as much of that information in the education material. It's not a survey that will be going out, it will be an education material, and it'll be over multiple months and weeks. I know we had some discussion of having at least one town meeting to make sure you have somewhere to go to have interaction like this, because there's a lot of good questions, and there's a lot of things that I wrote down is that I just assume people know, and obviously you don't. So we have to get our heads together, and we'll put as much information as we can, and then I'm sure that will bring in more questions too, so we can answer those. But with that, I do want to read, we do read 3 letters. It says, regarding dispute of public assessment mill increase for the city of Riverview, Riverview, Michigan, 23-2024. It's from Mark and Stephanie Gutierrez. Excuse me. Attention city clerk, city council members and city clerk. We disagree with the proposal to increase the mill of our current property taxes and are looking forward to more details regarding the proposal and allocation of funds if passed by the residents of Riverview in a vote. Our family closed on a new house in Riverview in late December of 2022, and we're very excited to become residents of the city of Riverview. Part of our due diligence prior to submitting an offer on our new home included receiving an estimate of what our new taxes would be in the next few years. It was those estimates that allowed us the comfort of purchasing a higher priced home. We moved from our Lincoln Park residence of over 20 years and now faced with a large increase in our property taxes after only being Riverview residents for 9 months. Both of us are full-time realtors and operate a real estate exchange brokerage of over 12 agents. In the last 25 years in the business, we've watched the trends of ever-increasing home prices with spiking increases in property taxes and city-led services straight to a high increase in foreclosed homes. A high foreclosure market is devastating to a city and the remaining neighborhoods. This is our concern right now. In the past few months, we've had listings on the market in Riverview of homeowners who have purchased their homes in the last 1 to 2 years. The homeowners have specifically stated they cannot afford their tax increases. By increasing the amount of mill even more, the city will be pricing new homeowners as well as fixed income, already struggling homeowners out of their homes and not the city of Riverview. And this is just a commentary before I finish. We all do know that the city can only raise your property taxes at the rate of inflation or what's the number? 4 or 5% max. But when the sale of the home takes place, it obviously can reset there. So obviously when there's a sale of the home, there is a significant increase in the prices. And just a little other commentary too. I think our taxes are now getting to back where they were back in 2008 and 9. So I think we've done well up till then, but now obviously reality is starting to set in. Although we're not fully aware of all the details and moving parts of the current state of the economy of the city of Riverview, we can't help but think there must be a solution. We look forward to becoming a part of the new growth of our city and intend to become more involved in the affairs. Part of the new growth of our city and intend to become more involved in the affairs of the city in the months to come. Sincerely, Mark and Stephanie Gutierrez. We also received it's a handwritten note, Riverview, Michigan City Clerk, Cindy Hutchinson. My name is Sidney Rosinski at 1775 Smith Street, Riverview, Michigan, 48193. This is my written protest, the approval of any new special assessment levied by the City Council of the City of Riverview. And one more letter, City of Riverview, Office of City Clerk. It's from Kevin A Termini of Riverside Childcare, 15918 King Road. Dear Cindy, as a property owner, I'm writing formally to protest the special assessment levy on behalf of my property in 15918 King Road. Considering the fact that I have similar businesses in a different city and pay 1/3 of the taxes that I do in Riverview, I do not understand the need for the special assessment. I understand the need to keep solid police presence in the city along with the associated costs by doing so. But I'm a small business owner and cannot afford your taxes as well as the added assessments. And that's what we have in that. After that, I will look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Councilwoman Ganaga, supported by Councilman Workman. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Norton.
Can we, since we have so much of the residents here, through your chair to Mr. Dobek, can we just give a backdrop of why we're going about this? The 4 millage, you being the city manager, that's what you need to balance the budget for 2024-25, correct?
Correct. And through the mayor to
Go ahead.
Councilmember Norton, yeah, there was printed information, as Mr. Kallman said. There's printed information outside that at the time of the expansion, the landfill was giving $3.8 million. Because it did not have post-closure and closure funds, that's why it's only transferred $1.5 million. So that's the answer to that gentleman's question. There's no lies. It's in the annual report. It's all accounted for. Mr. Kallman said in the early days it used to give 8 or 9 mills. It absolutely did. But as any costs in a business went up and the margins went away, right now we're scheduled to get $1.5 million from the landfill. This is to replace that and to answer everyone's questions from the standpoint of Summerfest. That's a completely sponsored activity at zero cost to the city. Same thing with tree lighting, sir. That's all sponsored, provided funds. That's zero cost to the city. So those are not, you're talking 1.5 mills. When you want to talk about that, that's 8 police officers, 4 firefighters. This is not something that you just, the 1.5 million or the 4 mills, that you just cut things. You could close all of City Hall and still not have enough. That's how dramatic the 1.5 mills. And let's talk about this. There was a huge push for this landfill expansion. Why? Because we needed the additional 20 years to build our closure fund. By it closing in 7 or 8, we're not going to have the time to build that closure fund. So landfill's got to keep every cent it makes. The city cannot count on the landfill. That's where the funds are going. They're going back to the landfill to close it with the state. We have to have the funds in the landfill accounts. So therefore, you can't count on the $1.5 million from the landfill in 24-25. This is the last year we're getting the $1.5 million.
Good question.
Can I follow that up? The cannabis, if Mr. Kyleman is correct, which I think he is correct, the deadline is the end of this month for the payout in 24.
Correct.
Okay. As of today, how many cannabis businesses are approved to move forward?
City clerk?
0.
Okay.
I believe one is in the midst of getting their C of O, but they still have to be state certified.
I do have some a little information, and it's my impression, I could be wrong, but it's my impression, they don't physically have to be open. I think they just have to have the license issued before October 1st. I think that's how it works. But correct me if I'm wrong, too.
I'm not sure.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay. Well,
we have to verify.
Go ahead.
Our one cannabis operation who wants to get their license, they're not going to accept the C of O until the state of Michigan does their inspection, and they're supposed to do it toward the end of the month. And once they get that approval, it's up to the state of Michigan, then they'll take our license in.
Okay.
And Mayor, through the mayor to Councilman Norton, I do agree with Mr. Toll's comments. He listed some very good options, viable options. However, we don't have the results from the gas plant. We don't know if it's going to be $1 or $400,000. It's still not open, it's still not flowing gas, so we can't count on that.
Mr. Dobek, Mr. Mayor, through your chair to Mr. Dobek, we're guaranteed 400,000.
Once it opens.
Once it opens.
Right.
Once it opens.
But we're not guaranteed any more money above 400,000.
Correct.
There's a good possibility with all these numbers that you've heard tonight with cannabis, that could make up roughly another 400.
That's exactly right, and that's exactly why it's up to 4, and we'll see exactly with the measurement of all the revenue in and all the expenses out, and we'll see exactly what we need.
So this is something that the first year we might need 4, but then we could back it off.
Correct.
You could.
All right.
Yeah. And
with
I just, one
Go
comment
ahead.
for you is, my impression how it works would be similar to the drug forfeiture funds. I don't think we can budget for that money, but once we receive it, that would obviously affect that we don't need it, and then next year we wouldn't have to do all the 4 mills.
Right. Through your chair, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Dobek, your job before this one was the landfill director.
Correct.
Mr. Toll said that there's a $33 million shortfall at the landfill. Is that correct?
No, I think he was referring to the post-closure and closure fund.
Yes.
Historically, the state would come through and estimate what was needed in the balance, and that was always somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000. This year, they came up with an additional $10 million with interest rates and inflation factors and such. So we had to come up and get a letter of credit on behalf of that, so that if the state took the landfill over, those funds were available for them to close it and keep it closed.
How close are we from the state taking the landfill over?
We're not close at all.
Okay.
They don't.
That's what I thought, but when you hear a statement like that, I just want to
Sure.
make sure. Are we fully staffed at the police station as of today?
Chief, are we too short?
Oh, we're 1 short. We were at 23, we went down to 22. We're currently trying to hire another.
Thank you, Chief. So it'll be this type, you have any more questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Original millages. Do we know what the number is for original millages per our city charter?
I do not.
Can we get that information to the council?
We'll have to look that up for sure.
Well, if we're asking for millage increases, we should know what the original millage number is. I wasn't even aware of that till Mr. Webb brought that up.
Are we talking a millage back in 2008?
I'm talking where it calls out the millages, the city millages, the original millages from the city charter. That's what I'm referring to from the notes that I took from Mr. Webb.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
I have one question.
Go ahead.
I know in the past, we were budgeted, I believe, for 25 officers, correct?
That is correct.
And has that henceforth decreased this year? We are currently budgeted for how many?
Chief?
Yeah, through the chair, we were budgeted last year for 25. We adjusted that to 23 for this year's budget.
Thank you.
I thought so. Thanks, Chief.
All right.
Your Honor, I just have one quick question. Jeff, you have been making so many cutbacks and condensing and whittling things down as you've been going through since you've taken over. What would your estimate be of what you've saved this city so far?
Well, Ken Kalman, I always call him the assistant controller of Riverview. At one time, it was $3.5 million that we were counting on, and we took it down to $1.5 million. So if you do the math, it's $2 million that changes have been made to try and curb this, but
So we're not outlandishly spending. There's no hidden money, and there's no conspiracy going on.
Right.
Correct? Everything's accounted for?
Correct. Well, I mean, obviously, we're audited every year through Plant Moran, so yes, we've all heard that, and I don't want to address it now, but we've been accused of filling
I
our
know,
pockets.
I just wanted to, on the record, that none of that has happened.
Okay. But one thing, you just put this here, one thing that we're going to get out there is, it's just...
it's on the city website.
It's on the city website. It's the city budget. And I really love this because it's got a bunch of pie charts and stuff of actually where our numbers go. So as of today, for every dollar you send the city gets 31.81%, or 31 cents of every dollar is what we get that you send to us. The rest is divided up amongst the county, the schools, Metro Authority, Zoo Authority, and those types of things. But the real important number is 52% of that is our police department budget. So, like the city manager says, we could get rid of every department and we would still, that wouldn't be enough cuts. And somebody did and brought up a really good point of they want to make sure that whatever money is collected from this 4 mills, this $1.5 million, goes to the police department. Well, we have to remind what our police department budget is. If it's $6 million, then 1.54 million is only going to cover a small portion of that. So, and same thing with, somebody mentioned the library millage. There is a library millage on your tax bill. That's only partially funds the library. There's a public safety for the fire department, only partially funds the fire department. They don't fully fund them. So obviously a majority of their money comes from the general fund. Now with this $1.5 million is going to be the first part of the expenses for the police department, and then the rest will come from the general fund where this money is going to go. So I hope that answers a lot of the questions, but I know we got a ton more to go, and we'll do our best to make sure that happens. We can have, I don't know if it'd work having this many people in a place. We can break it down and have some smaller meetings where we have more of a conversation, maybe breakout rooms at the library or something like that to, I'll call it a more neutral area so you don't feel, I mean, 'cause I get it. I feel very uncomfortable speaking from that side too, and you know, we try to be friendly up here. But I do know it's intimidating sometimes, so we'll make it our best to make it comfortable for you to ask your questions and your concerns. So with that, I will look for a motion or a vote.
Mr. Mayor, through your chair to City Manager Dolbeck, since we haven't had any officer at the DEA, the loss in, let's just say, experience, networking, the forfeiture funds that we've talked about tonight that would be a potential bonus. Would you say that that is something that we have talked about looking into getting someone back, and about maybe how much have we lost by not having somebody out there?
Mayor,
go ahead.
You know, we can't determine the exact amount because forfeiture happens when they find something at the airport, or they aid in recovering drug money or monies, stolen monies. But that account at one time was in excess of $500,000.
Oh, wow.
And it's down now to less than 100,000. And that's how we funded all of the, and this is way before me, but this is the way the city funded police cars, guns, ammunition, vests, all those things. So by you saying, did it hurt us not having us at the airport? Sure it did. Plus the networking, because then the police officer can network with the state and the county and bring those things back, those lessons learned back to the city. And that's the important thing, right? Continuous improvement. So absolutely.
Thank you for that. I agree.
Thank you.
100%.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Norton?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins?
Yes.
Mayor Swift?
Yes.
Councilmember Workman?
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga?
Yes.
Now's the time for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the mayor and council, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Try to keep your comments to 5 minutes. There is no sharing of times and no rebuttals, and please be respectful, just as you were the first time. Yes, sir.
17861 Devonshire. You know, I understand that a special assessment is going to be necessary. The question is the amount and the period of time. During next year, whatever dispensaries are going to be up and running will be up and running. I'm assuming 7R. At 5R, that's fine. We can adjust it up and down. It was always indicated to council that that gas project would generate $400,000 a year, and they were scheduled to be up and running before this end of this year. So between that and the police officers that we don't hire, one for the schools, the one for the airport, there's half the money you're looking for. All I'm saying is I don't think it should be for 10 years. Let's do it for 2 or 3 years. See what the gas project finalizes. Some people say it's going to bring in more than that. We'll know. We'll know by then what the dispensary is going to bring in, whether it's going to be up or down. I mean, there's 7 licenses and 2 pending. You know what they passed out last year? Michigan, I've seen a report in Cranes, they got more sales than any other country, than any other state in this country. They're approaching like $3 billion this year. Now that depends, of course, how many new dispensaries they got too. So that could be a sign it's going to go up. It may not go down. But there are other options, and I referenced those. And they can all be finalized. And if you do it for a 2 or 3 year period, you can make corrections once you have a handle on what those numbers are going to be. Also, the other option, and maybe I might be repeating myself, but we could do without approval of anyone if we use the golf practice area for additional capacity, which would not require approval from anyone. Use those funds to pay down the shortfall in post-closure and allow our community to still receive revenue from the landfill for several more years. That too should be placed on the ballot for voter approval, just like the special assessment. Let the residents decide. Again, this expansion and utilizing the golf practice area should be placed on the ballot and let the residents decide with any special assessment request, which should not be more than 2 or 3 years and more than 2 or 3 mills based on the options I just referenced. Pick the ones you want. It doesn't need to be 10 years. Come back and you can correct it at the end of 2 or 3. One other option would be to determine the value of the remaining airspace using the Eagle approach, golf practice, and the balance of the airspace available in the current landfill footprint, and send out a request for quote to sell the landfill to Waste Management or GFI Environmental. We should seriously think about getting out of the landfill business and selling the landfill to one of these firms. You know, they have enough political clout to get an expansion under the Eagle approach approved, and the golf practice area is already permitted. It doesn't have to be approved, so we got a lot of space there. That could potentially generate enough funds to pay off our outstanding liabilities for pension, health care, and post-closure costs, and leave us with substantial funds that could be invested, and the returns on them funds could replace a portion of the revenue lost from the landfill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tim Brennan. I live at 17428 Ray Street. I've been a resident of this city for over 20 years. I've purposely stayed out of politics. I purposely don't come to the city hall meetings because this is not my thing. I spent 20 years coaching youth sports in the city. I helped build recreation stuff over at Memorial back in the day. I've done my bid for the city. Why am I saying this? Because I show up here tonight and I see that the men and women who are supposed to keep this city safe are in danger of losing their funding. And I say this because here I'm sitting here and I'm hearing you people say that we have an emergency budget crisis. And I see residents get up and they say, well, I'm on a fixed income or I'm retired and I can't afford to pay all this extra money in taxes. And I see a real crisis brewing. And how close is this crisis to being something where the state has to come in and take over? Because if you're telling us that we have to have this emergency assessment, what's next? And I get what you're saying. I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong. Maybe it's the perfect storm with inflation and the world and the way things are going. Or maybe it's mismanagement by this body. We all knew the landfill was going to get closed one day. And here we are. We're arguing about cannabis, and we're arguing about where we're going to get funding from. We knew the landfill was coming to an end, and we did nothing. I was donating my time to sports and helping the kids in the city because that's what I was good at. You guys came to City Hall because that's what you're supposed to be good at. And quite frankly, I ain't seeing it. Not right now. We have too many budget crises coming up, and we have our men and women who they just show up and do their job every day. It's dangerous, and now we're saying we can't fund them. It's unforgivable, ladies and gentlemen. Unforgivable.
Anybody else?
Ken Kyleman, 20243 Coachwood. Got a couple of things I just want to say before I get in my prepared remarks. I thought I saw Cindy indicate that we have 0 dispensaries that qualify if the count was done today. 0. So we don't have 7 that are going to give us $50,000. It's 0. Okay, that's the one thing. The other, I think the meeting here is obvious. It's obvious of the importance of this education campaign that goes on, both for the citizenry and the council. We all need to understand this better. And let me suggest that to make sure that there's not all this suspicion that there's some kind of lies or chicanery going on, that maybe a few parties from what would be considered both sides of this issue get together and discuss the development of the educational materials before they're put out and before they're approved, just to help the community to have a little more confidence in that. So that's just a suggestion. You can do with that what you want. But like I said before...
Just so you're clear, you suggest that have some members from the residents participate in putting the information together?
Yes,
Okay.
People that are vocal in the community, that people would be respected as being on
Good
one
idea.
side or the other. Yeah, you get it. But like I said before a public hearing, I believe we are headed in the right direction. I believe a lot of the actions that are being taken and things that are being presented are to correct these errors and missteps in the past. And we have to take those steps, and we're taking them now. I'm excited to hear the vision that some like Brian Webb have for the city-owned property on Sibley, east of the golf course. A vibrant, multi-use property providing taxes, housing, businesses, and entertainment that would attract people to our city. And this would be a huge plus. But people want us to have a quaint downtown like Trenton or Wyandotte. But we've got a divided highway like 4th Street. It's not compatible with that vision, with cars literally racing at where the speed limit is 45 miles an hour. This kind of property might help us to start to change that. We're headed in the right direction, but there's more. Someone has finally aroused Debbie Dingle from her sleep and gotten her to focus some attention on some of the toxic properties and pollution issues that we've been dealing with for decades. Sometimes a little rabble-rousing on Facebook can be a good thing. When our elected officials who represent us think of us, be it Debbie Dingle or Debbie Stabenow or Gary Peters or Darren Camilleri or Jamie Churches or Warren Evans or Joseph Palomara, they need to be thinking very angry voters who want real action taken now, not just platitudes. Action wasn't taken in Flint until the people's voices could no longer be ignored, and so must it be here. If real efforts can be made in dealing with Arkema and DTE and the riverfront and the other properties that need attention, then we're headed in the right direction. But there's more. Although I voted against the legalization of recreational marijuana on the state ballot years ago, I'm very appreciative of our ad hoc marijuana research committee, who studied the matter and in the face of threats of publicly initiated petitions that could have potentially locked the city into years of chaos, provided us with a well-thought-out work product. Councilpersons Ganaga, Norton, and O'Neill, along with our police chief, our city manager, one of our attorneys, a city planning commissioner, and other interested parties worked on the ordinance that was approved by every member of the committee, except for the school superintendent, who abstained from that vote for obvious reasons. They followed the mayor's philosophy of hiring good people and following their advice by trusting our lawyers to propose the best method of minimizing the number of dispensaries allowed in our city. They listened to the school superintendent's concerns and considered the routes the students take to and from school. They listened to the subject matter experts and laymen alike who came to their meetings that were open to everyone in the public to come and present their opinions. And their efforts were ratified first by the city council, and then after one of the most embarrassing campaigns I've witnessed since I've lived here, they were confirmed by the public at large, providing control over the dispensaries and a significant revenue stream over and above the property tax revenues that these and other businesses contribute to our city. But it seems to be that the opposition to the ordinance may have delayed some of those dispensaries from coming online to have that revenue pushed off till 2006. Now, I'm very sorry for that. But we're heading in the right direction, but there's more. I was pleased to see that our agenda includes an item added, I think, of the recommendation of the city manager and the new finance director to allow the city to invest its idle funds with the Michigan Cooperative Liquid Asset Security System, thus allowing the city to enhance its investment earnings. A thorough review of how our funds are invested is in order, and in this time of high interest rates, this action is a good first step. We're headed in the right direction, but there's more. I'm pleased that the city manager is correcting a long-standing malpractice and is committed to meet the requirements of our charter and submit to the council budget data showing the relation between the estimated and actual revenues and expenditures to date at the beginning of each quarterly period of the fiscal year, what some are calling quarterly budget reports that were mentioned earlier, and we look forward to begin seeing those early next month. I'm also pleased that the city manager is also committed to correct what has been a deficiency in our annual audit for many years and provide the quarterly investment reporting to the city council that is required by the state law. Sometimes those two things are confused. They're two different quarterly reports.
If you could wrap it up in the next
Pardon me?
15, can you wrap it up in the next 15 seconds? Thank you.
And when it comes to our city finances, more public information is a good thing, and ignoring the charter and state law is no longer acceptable. We're headed in the right direction, and there's more, but I've taken up too much of your time tonight already. So in closing, let me say I look forward to wherever the mayor and council, whoever next serves in those roles, will guide us in the coming years. Thank you, and God bless you all for your service.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Since I'm being yelled at, to make sure I remember to say my name this time.
Oh, sorry you missed it the first time.
My name is David Prey, 13740 Huntington. That was a perfect segue. Frankly, I'm actually going to do something a little bit different tonight. I'm actually going to read my statement instead of just shooting from the hip. Tonight's going to be a little bit different than many of the times I've addressed the council, as tonight I'm going to be reading much of my thoughts. As I'm doing so is because I think it's important nothing gets left unsaid regarding this issue that needs to be talked about. I want everyone to understand this is not a personal attack on anyone, but instead something that needs to be mentioned. Mr. Workman, you've served on the council in one form or another for almost 2 decades. Councilman Blanchette, you've served on this council for almost 4 decades. Mayor Swift, again, you have been on either the council or been mayor for almost 2 decades as well. Now, the reason I'm bringing up the 3 of you is because in your combined service, that's almost 80 years of service. 80 years. For the rest of you, you have roughly the equivalent of 12 years. The reason I'm bringing this up is I think it's astonishing that in that 80 years of combined experience between just the 3 of you, the Arkema site continues to be a blight on this community for the past 30 years without any kind of meaningful progress. Now, one of the residents just mentioned Debbie Dingle. She sent out yet another press release asking more questions about the Arkema site. In her letter, she states the following quotes that I find quite concerning. Public pressure is beginning to mount on local officials who are calling for progress. She goes on to say, to be very blunt, it is unacceptable that it has been over 3 decades and this site has still not been fully cleaned up. Dingle in her letter then asked the EPA, can you confirm that the public is not exposed to any contamination from the Arkema property? Now, this letter was sent in August of this month, or last month. I find it amusing that this is the first time she sent her press release since just before her 2020 election. Now, seeking re-election again, she produces yet another press release asking similar questions than the one she put out before. Mind you, it took almost 2 years for the EPA to respond to her original letter, but good news. She brought the administrator for the EPA, Region 5, Deborah Shore, to the site for some great photo ops and promises of change. So here's the point. When is this city going to stop taking lip service from a bad politician? The recent press release states that one of her motivations for asking the question she raised is because public pressure is beginning to mount on local officials. So you all know me being me, I have to ask exactly which politicians do I need to target to get something to be done? Just name them, I'll happily ramp up my pressure because the residents are tired of the status quo when it comes to this site. Now, in front of every one of you, I handed out a packet that is, at the beginning of this meeting, that has just some of the chemicals at the Arkema site. These have been ignored for at least the past 3 decades. Now, I did you all a favor. I highlighted some of the health concerns associated with these chemicals that are on the site. The same chemicals which some of you have chosen to ignore by the inaction of the Arkema site have the following health effects. Some of those are known carcinogens. They cause cancer in both men and women. They cause genetic mutations to unborn children. They can cause infertility in both men and women. They cause birth defects in unborn children. Above all of this, it's also extremely toxic to aquatic life. Now, that being said, can any of you guarantee that none of these chemicals or all of these chemicals are being properly maintained and pose no risk to anyone? If you answer yes to that, you know more than Debbie Dingle because she's still waiting on the EPA for a response to that. The fact is, Arkema and the EPA have entered a voluntary agreement to clean up that site, and due to that, no progress has been made. In fact, the last time Arkema was actually fined for this property was all the way back in 2009. Why were they fined? The chemicals in the ground. They paid a $170,000 fine, and they continued business as usual. Since then, no fines, no inspections. By the way, this fine was accrued over 20 years ago after they agreed to, by consent, to clean up the site. Riverview can no longer sit on the sidelines like a child not picked up for a baseball game and hope for the best outcome. I understand that taking on this site is challenging. However, if you don't feel like you have the stamina or willpower to take on this fight, then you should seriously reconsider representing the residents. By the way, speaking of Debbie Dingle, the photo ops that have been taken with her are absolutely embarrassing in my opinion. A few years ago, Brian Webb and myself and some residents organized a successful Back the Blue rally at Young's Patriot Park. Now, Mr. Mayor, you reached out to Debbie Dingle and offered her an invitation without the knowledge or consent of the organizers. When informed that none of us wanted her there because we didn't want the event to be political, you informed us that you would not rescind her invitation. At the recent State of the City address, once again, Debbie Dingle attended and all the photo ops were taken, and yet again at our Summerfest, more Debbie Does Nothing shows up. I think it's the time the city starts contacting other state reps, as this one has proven to do nothing for our city residents. If our own city leaders can't see that we have serious problems, then we have a problem with leadership. Again, none of these comments are meant to be taken personally, nor are they politically motivated. I, like many residents, are simply tired of the inaction of this city. We talk about how to generate income from the city, but when the actual plans and ideas come forward, it's met with more inaction by the city. The idea of the Walk of Lights that I proposed has been loved by most of the city. Every resident has been excited over it. Yet, when I brought this up 2 years ago, I was told to meet with Todd Dickman, and the last conversation I had with him was the last time I had a conversation about the idea with any official. I was told by Todd if I wanted to pay for the entire thing, I could go ahead and go do it myself. This Friday is the opening night for Glen Lord Trails. I've invited all of you to attend with me so you can see what the idea is. I would still encourage you to do so.
Mr. Prey, can you wrap it up?
I'm last paragraph, brother.
Okay.
I would strongly suggest more action and leadership in this city. If you're happy with the direction of the city right now and the looming tax increases, then by all means continue with the status quo. I can guarantee you, though, if that's the direction the city wants to continue with, the city is not going to have much of a future. With all this being said, I truly do appreciate everything you all do. Regardless of the way this sounds, this is not personal. I just want action to the city. The residents, like myself, are tired of the status quo. Thank you all very much.
Mr. Prey, before you leave, I do, and this just happened in the last few days. I know as I'm representative on the DCC. The DCC is also putting a team together. It's going to start meeting in October to address all the brownfields that are in any community affected by the closing of the coal plants. So it would be Ecorse, River Rouge, Wyandotte, Riverview, and Trenton, I believe. They're putting a team together. I know myself and City Manager Dolbeck will be, and I don't want to mention their names, but we have 2 people from our brownfield team that have been asked to join that team. So we are finally getting, maybe it's pressure from Debbie, I don't know where it's from, but this is through the DCC where they received a grant to actually start putting some action together.
Please continue that action.
Yes, sir.
Thank you guys for everything you guys do.
Anybody else?
Real quick, I just want to share this with you, and I'm not going to be able to share the exact numbers. Our company did over $1.5 billion last year. And I went to an emergency meeting, and they're not even forecasting to do $1 billion this year. What does that mean? With inflation and things, the prices of the goods are going up, you would do more, because we went up over 20% in inflation. That's what the consumer is paying, 20% more when they buy goods from us now. And they're not going to hit the $1.5 billion. So beware what you're going to put us in debt to coming this year. Now, I just want to go to one other subject. I would really like to see a study done on the east side of 4th Street. How many people have colon cancer? Something is desperately wrong there. I just lost a neighbor, a dear friend. I'm not going to mention his name, but he drives a 55 Chevy. Everybody knows about it. It's a beautiful old car he's been restoring for years. Passed away by that. Two friends that ride motorcycle, husband and wife. Husband had colon cancer. They cut him open. He had to wear a bag. They'd be able to sew him back up, and he made it through. The day after he made it through, his wife fell sick, and now she's got colon cancer. The fish are not safe to eat in the river. What do they all have in common? That very thing. I'd like to know, really like to know a study. Protect our city, not just the city, the residents. How many people you know in this area that have colon cancer? This is getting to me real close because it's not far away. This is something we need to address as a city or as a county. But Wayne County really doesn't support us that well either. But we really didn't know what's going on in the waters. I understand a demolition stopped at Trenton for some mysterious reason. They found mercury. Better wake up. We better wake up. They're not destroying Riverside. My wife worked there for years. Guess what my wife has? Cancer. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you.
Sally Sullivan, 14395 Hamilton Street. I asked this last time, I'll ask it again, and hopefully the answer is the same. As far as the dump goes, and yes, it is a dump, it is not going to be reconsidered, is that correct? You're not going to consider reopening it again or expanding it?
I am not aware, I've said that before, and I always say never, but I'm not aware any plans to expand it further at this time.
Because as Mr. Prey says, all the phosphates and everything else that goes along with it. I know teenagers and young adults, they tell me they won't even consider moving back to Riverview after they've graduated because of that and how tarnished the environment is, and that they feel that the older generation in some cases, that is one reason they don't even want to move back here, because they feel the dumps here. And I strongly appreciate that you would consider that in any decisions that you make again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Michael O'Kane, 19302 Brandywine Street, following up from, it was about a month or so ago I was here. Really just wanted to follow up after, I'd say the quarterly Facebook post about the water bills. Now that after installing an irrigation system earlier this year, I now had a full 3 months to see what the difference is, and comparing it over to last year, just for myself and my four-legged pup, we went from a $80 bill in 2022 to over $456. So it was a roughly $390 increase year over year. This is, to be done for the betterment of the home as far as improving the look, the curb appeal. Myself and many others have experienced the seasonal increase. So, as spoken last time, I would say that it's for the city to consider either tiered or seasonal pricing, since we don't want to invest in the additional infrastructure to measure water and sewage separately. And that's really all I wanted to come here today, is to revisit that now that we've all got our essentially end of summer bills. It's worth evaluating. It seems like this has been an ongoing issue with the city, and to me, by doing just some easy accounting on it, or at least doing the seasonal, I think it would give those that are investing into the exterior of their home, as well as those with kids with pools that need to be filled, a slight break, at least on the sewage piece. Obviously, I use the water, but it's not going down the drain. It's evaporating and going into the dirt. So that's all. Thank you all for your time tonight, and yeah. have a
Thank
good
you.
one.
Anybody else?
Brian Webb, 20271 Maplewood, and boy, isn't this an epic meeting. Sorry for the longevity of this, but I just wanted to finish a comment based on the comment session for the special assessment. The reason I was asking about the millage, and just to clarify for Cindy, that would be going back to before the Headley was enacted, so before 76, what the millage rate was then, because as we know the Headley Act then capped the amount of the increase to 5% or the rate of inflation. So that's the number I was looking for. And the second thought is even though the Headley is probably not an attractive one because that's also a tax increase, I think the council is saying you've all done your due diligence, you've looked at the proposals from Plant Moran, and hadn't that been one, I want to make sure that you really fully understood what the impact of the Headley rollback or override would have been. And that's why I was saying I appreciate Mr. Toll's thoughts and sentiments here about what other options we have. That's what I'm questioning, is did we look at all of our options before we settled on A, which is the 4 mills? And if you did, then please, in your educational, please share with us what that assessment was done. I know 4 mills is very important. So, but beyond that, I wanted to echo some of the sentiments from Dave Prey, and going back to the last week's study session, Mayor Swift, I hope you don't feel that I was attacking you, but I want to echo the sentiments that the residents really are upset about the Arkema property and want to see some action after decades of inactivity. So I was bringing that forward last week because of Debbie Dingle's press release in late August. My intent was not to incite you, but was to rally the city officials to engage directly with Congresswoman Dingell and the EPA, but I did focus too much on Mayor Swift's link with the DCC, and I'm happy to hear that you took that to heart. Maybe it was just coincidence, but now we have some action with yourself and Rita and some people from the Brownfield Authority, and I hope that'll be beneficial to our community. I do appreciate that effort, as well as with Dave Skirtle from the office and the other council members for addressing this Arkema property. I know it's not easy. But you had mentioned that you have a long-standing relationship with these officials and organizations that you've been building relationships with over the years, such as Congresswoman Dingell, Camilleri, et cetera, Jamie Churches. So now it's time to take some of the fruits of that relationship building and make sure that our voices are heard on this Arkema property. And I think we're getting some traction, but let's not stop now. So I wanted to make some corrections in my statement last week. It was not a feasibility study that she had mentioned in her letter. It was a statement of basis, and I had challenged you to find out what the results of that statement of basis was. So I'm still hoping to get that. And then also we had discussed about where the dredgings were going to be put and if they're going to be shipped. And I'm getting conflicting answers here. So I attended the McGuagan Creek Upper Trenton Channel public meeting on January 31st, 2022, and I asked that question. And Miranda Henning, who is the consultant that's responsible for evaluating if the chemicals from the site could harm the public, stated that dredge sediment will be shipped to the CDF on Point Moulet, referring to the barges. And you can find that on YouTube, and it's at minute 1 hour and 9 minutes through 1 hour, 9 minutes and 30 seconds to hear her rebuttal or answer to my question.
Well, Brian, what do I search for on YouTube then?
Actually, you can go to webforcouncil.com, and I have a blog that has all the links right now. I will be sharing on Facebook. I just didn't have time before the meeting. So yeah. You could probably even search on YouTube, just to make it simple, McGuagan Creek Upper Trenton Channel public meeting. you can remember all that. But, so Paul Powell from the Army Corps of Engineer also said and reiterated there would be no trucking of the MCUTC dredging materials to the CDF, and that's at 1 hour and 10 minutes. But to further understand what this site is, what's going on, what we can actually expect from the site, I did call Brian Kelly, who is EPA Region 5 Emergency Response, who I have a relationship through the McLeod site where I'm on the CAG leadership board for. So using that relationship that I've fostered and built over the years, I found that he believes that the dredgings were actually going to be on the shore. So like yourselves and Dave
Exactly
Skirta.
what I said.
So, well, that's what you guys said, but actually in this meeting, the person responsible said that the dredgings wouldn't be there. So there's conflicting answers of whether or not the contaminated dredgings will reach the land over
I
at the...
wasn't wrong, I was just given misinformation.
I'm not even saying you're wrong. I'm saying I'm getting conflicting answers myself, so it's hard to know when
Clear it
there's conflicting information. But, so going back to a couple other statements, there was a question why we couldn't have it on the Superfund, right? Why we couldn't get the EPA to clean up the Arkema site. And it was mentioned by yourself, and I think it was echoed by Rita, is that it's 80 acres, so it's too small for the Superfund. Well, Brian Kelly from the EPA said that there is no limit on the acreage for a Superfund, so that's not a true and accurate statement. But what is going on the site is there's a RCRA, which is a Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, which means that there's a cleanup of the property by the operating company.
Brian, you do have to wrap it up.
Which is Arkema. So Arkema has done an assessment on the property. They know where the chemicals are at. They've told the EPA, and the EPA says that there is not a pathway to the public. And I think Dave Frey and myself would challenge that, because we know that the groundwater, based upon what I'm hearing from the McLeod site, is very dynamic around there. So if it's in the ground, chances are it's in the groundwater and it's moving off of the property. So, yeah, I got a lot more, but if you want to read more about it, my blog's at webforcouncil.com. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Elmer Trombley, 17738, Brinson. I would just like to get this story straight about Arkema. I worked my butt off with John Dingell to get the Superfund to clean that up. And they turned us down at the Surface Transportation Board in Washington, D.C. And there is nothing we can do. Well, there is something we can do, but we don't have the funds to clean it up ourselves, and the people that own it, either in Texas or New York, I don't know who owns it now, they're not going to clean it up because that's a big tax write-off for them. And Debbie Dingell, she ain't going to do nothing either because there's nothing she can do. The Surface Transportation Board turned John Dingell down, and if they appeal, they'll get the same answer. The Superfund it's not big enough for the Superfund. I just want to make that straight and clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But that's not going to stop us from trying. Anybody else? Seeing none, we will move on. I would also like to say thank you, everybody, for keeping it very civil tonight. Thank you very much. 8.1, appoint the Parks and Recreation Commission. We have one opening for a commissioner. It looks like we have Miss Harmony Eggert filed for an unexpired 2-year term set to expire July 31st, 2025. What's council's pleasure?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Support.
Motion by Councilman Norton, excuse me, support by Councilwoman O'Neill. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins?
Yes.
Mayor Swift?
Yes.
Councilmember Workman?
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga?
Yes.
Councilmember Norton?
Yes.
A2, appointment to the Senior Recreation Commission. The Senior Recreation Commission is a 9-member board. One of 9 members. We had somebody decline a nomination, so we have we have 2 applicants. We have an applicant from we have Ms. Phyllis Cataldo, received July 29th, and Kathleen Daly received August 15th. The protocols normally is we accept the first dated application, so I would look for a motion from council.
Your Honor, I'd like to move that we accept Phyllis Cataldo's application from July 29, 2023.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Councilwoman Ganaga, supported by Councilman Norton. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Workman.
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Yes.
Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Is there any item council wants removed from the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Norton.
I would like 9.5 removed for discussion.
Yes, sir. 9.1, approve special events application from Community of Christ Car Show on church grounds for Sunday, October 8th, 2023. 9.2, ratify city manager's approval of special events application from the 27th District Court for RWRC End of Picnic on September 11th, 2023 in Young Patriots Park. Excuse me. 9.3, approve execution of letter agreement between the City of Riverview and Riverview Junior Football. 9.4, approve execution of an operation agreement between the City of Riverview and the Riverview City Co-op Nursery, Inc. for the 23-24 school year. 9.6, ratify city manager's approval of special events application from Eve Howell's Glen subdivision for a Glens Park sleepout on September 15th, 2023. 9.7, approve mini grant from the Michigan Association of Chiefs to be used for the accreditation process. 9.8, award cooperative bid to Quadient and authorize government product lease agreement with meter rental agreement for replacement of postage machine, meter rental and maintenance at $176.42 per month for a 60-month total of $10,585.20. What's council's pleasure?
So move, Your Honor.
Support.
Motion by Councilman Workman, supported by Councilman O'Neill. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Workman.
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Yes.
Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
9.5, authorize Tetra Tech work authorization for fiscal year 23-24. Councilman Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through your chair to Mr. Dobek, could you just explain, because of the previous thing with the special assessment and everything, this is something that we do every year, correct?
Correct.
And this is something that is mandated by the state, correct?
Correct. All of these work authorizations is for all of our environmental engineering, which includes gas, disposal, water testing, all of our testing. So these are all the services that we have to do to be compliant with state regulations.
Thank you.
You want me to read the background so everybody knows what we're talking about?
Please, thank you.
Tetra Tech provides annual because of my throat, I can't believe I'm still talking. Tetra Tech provides annual regulatory environmental services for the operation of the land preserve. As established in section 9.4B of the purchasing manual and council policy number 63, assignment of consulting engineering services which exceed $15,000 per project, excuse me, must be authorized by the city council, as all major purchases are. The projects and services that are scheduled for fiscal year 2023-24 were presented and subsequently approved by city council during the fiscal year 2023-24 budgeting process. Project work authorizations are on file in the Office of the Finance Directing Purchasing Agent. Per the contract, the city reserves the right to terminate all work authorizations with a 30-day advance written notice. Tetra Tech is aware of this provision. Do we have a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for doing it.
Is that a motion?
Yes, that'll be my motion, too.
Motion by Councilman Norton, supported by
Support.
Councilman Workman. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Workman.
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Yes.
Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Swift.
Yes. 10.1, adopt resolution electing to comply with the provisions of Public Act 152 of 2011. What's council's pleasure?
So moved.
Support.
Support.
Motion by Councilwoman Ganaga, supported by Councilwoman O'Neill. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Yes.
Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Workman.
Yes.
10-2, adopt resolution authorizing the approval of the addition of Michigan Cooperative Liquid Asset Security System as an approved investment option. It's council's pleasure.
So move, Your Honor.
Support.
Motion by Councilman Workman, supported by Councilwoman Gunaga. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Workman.
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Yes.
We have nothing under administration, nothing under ordinances. Any other business, anything council wants to bring up at this time?
Your Honor,
Councilman Workman.
in an effort to move forward and educate the electors for the Public Act 33 Police Protection, Public Safety, Special Assessment, the city must engage with a marketing firm. We have met with 2 marketing firms separately in August on their proposals. The city must secure a marketing firm for the benefit of the electors for the educational campaign for the Public Act 33 Police Protection, Public Safety, Special Assessment ballot question. Therefore, I move to direct and authorize the city manager to educate the letter of engagement with Thread Connected Marketing for the educational campaign materials for the Public Act 33 Police Protection, Public Safety, Special Assessment.
That was a mouthful. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Councilwoman Ganaga. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Workman.
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Yes.
Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
Any other business?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Robbins.
real quick, I'm sorry, I know everyone wants to get out. Just touch on a few quick things that were brought up tonight. Make sure I understand them correctly. By the end of this month, the cannabis companies have a deadline. The likelihood of them actually making it to the 2024 financial reel are 0 as of right now, correct?
That sounds like a city clerk question.
I'm sorry. I didn't-
Better do it, and get right in the mic so we can hear you.
Sorry.
Maybe it's just my cold, but
Someone brought up earlier, the cannabis is going to be the deadline at the end of this month, correct? And as of right now, none are looking like they're going to make it onto the 2024 roll. Is that correct? Maybe one is close?
That's what I said.
Go ahead.
Chair, I only have one that's a possibility.
Awesome, thank you.
He's passed all the Riverview inspections. He only wants to wait until the state before he, before he accepts the certificate of occupancy,
Right.
in case he has to make any changes. so.
There's a lot of people saying we're counting money that we don't have yet.
No, we're not
So that's
gonna-
why I just wanted to point that out. We've already addressed the officer at the airport and how I guess all of us think that would be a great idea. I, for one, as soon as that can be reinstituted, I say we go for it. I thought I had heard before, someone else tonight brought up the sale of the landfill. If that were to happen, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be a no holds barred. It could move way further than we would want it to, correct? If a private company were to take over, per the city charter, I believe it's like 300 yards.
it's not the, go ahead, Jeff.
I believe it's 500 feet,
But it's not
it
the
would-
city charter.
Yeah, yeah, it's not the city charter, but Councilman Robbins, it would, the city elected to start the landfill, it would have to vote to sell the landfill.
It'd have to go to a vote of the people.
It would first have to be if that even came up, it'd have to be a supermajority, 5-2 up here. And then after a supermajority, it would have to go to the people.
And we would lose complete control of what happens after that, correct?
Correct.
That's the important part I wanted to hit on, because I noticed somebody who's not here anymore brought that up.
Correct.
The water bills, sorry, I took a lot of notes tonight. The water bills, Mr. Dobek, or Mr. Mayor, through your chair to Mr. Dobek. correct me if I'm wrong, but since Councilman Workman was the city manager, there was a long period of time where there was no hikes, but that didn't stop the county from raising their costs,
Yeah.
correct?
Well, actually, when Mr. Merkman was city manager, there were 20%, 15 to 20% hikes for 3 years in a row, and they have since went down. I believe this year's hike, I don't have my budget book, but somewhere around 5.5%. And you got to remember, these hikes, we're not making money on this water.
Right.
We're passing through. And I can tell you that the budget this year, our water fund actually subsidized the rate hike from GLEWA, Great Lakes Water Authority, by the tune of $250,000. So we could have passed that on in a rate increase. So this is not based on, we pay for every ounce of water that we use. And so it doesn't matter, you know, if we use less. I mean, it matters if we use less, but it's budgeted on a peak flow. And I was educated by Sohail, our city engineer, and Jeff Webb, our water director, on, we take a look, history of how we use water throughout the year. And we have to, I mean, the penalty for using it out over our stipulated rate that we, our volume that we commit to is it's just enormous. So we have to go through and look at that every single year. And we're not passing the full cost on to the residents right now. We're subsidizing it with our water fund.
Right. I'll just add that we are subsidizing it a little bit, but I know in the past that whatever the rate is, we do have to charge a little bit more in the end because of the infrastructure cost. Not only do we have to pay for the water itself, but the support of the system. So, and I think we do a great job as with the money that's collected over what we owe, we build up a water fund.
We do.
And then, I don't know if this happens every time, but 9 times out of 10, when we finance a $10 million, $15 million water project, we pay cash for it. And then, and that saves the financing costs.
Sure.
Not everyone, but a lot of them.
Well, since I've been at this role, I think we've been sewer and water lining for millions, not 10 million, but a few million. Yep. So, and that is, you know, I mean, everyone says that you build up a balance, but if we had to do all of the water infrastructure that should be done over the years, we need 10 times the amount we have in the water fund. And so we're just knocking it out, all the areas of the old struggling infrastructure are what we're working on. So we've had a couple sewer lining projects, and we've had a couple water lining projects, and we'll continue to do that. Every year we budget for that, and we do that, so.
But I think that to David's point too is that we did, I can't remember what the increase was it 3%?
This year?
Yeah.
This year was 5.
5%, so
Yeah.
it's a pretty big,
Well,
and you match
what it
that
could've-
along with the summer bill, which are always higher, so it was an increase.
Your Honor?
But there was a long time in between there where it wasn't, so it could have been extremely worse. So we, you know, did a little, but
Yeah.
that's.
Your Honor,
Councilman Workman.
just a point of interest. The lifespan of ductile iron, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I am, is 50 years. Every water line on the east side of Ford Street is ductile iron. My house was built in 1952. So they just replaced my water line, probably, the water main, probably, what, 3 years ago? At a cost of $1 million what? Oh, $5 million? At a cost of $5 million. We still have, what, was it 5 or what was it?
It was replaced 5 years ago. It was close to $2 million.
Okay.
In the whole area, right?
How many more water lines do we have to repair? Does this gentleman here not
Well,
sleep in winters for?
The city has asset management plans and capital improvement plans for water and sanitary systems, 5-year and 20-year. Those are sizable in the millions. So the rate structure got to keep up with the obligation that we have to replace these mains over 20 years and replace the sewers over 20 years. This year, we are adding almost $600,000 worth of sewer lining to keep up with the infiltration inflow to minimize the cost of paying for excess flow to DUA. At the same time, we did replace 2 water mains, one on Pennsylvania and one on at Wendy Court and Vreeland. And those, again, were aging and breaking quite a bit, so the water loss was getting pretty high. And to keep up with the capital improvement plan, we had to replace those. We have many more on the list.
The reason I wanted to call the council's attention, when you start whittling down that fund that we have, we'll have all these people in here again screaming that we didn't plan ahead. Now, they scream now when you give them a little bit of an increase so that you can build that fund up, and we're stealing from them for water and all that good stuff. But trust me, if we go out for a millage increase to fix the water system, you better duck. So you either take the screaming now or take a war later. So just calling it to your attention.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that what I was told, it could have been substantially higher. So there was a bit of a compromise there on that.
Mm-hmm.
And one last thing,
Go ahead.
promise.
You got 4 minutes.
All right, I'll be done quick. A couple people have mentioned that years ago, Mr. Trombley being one of them, has gone to the elected officials. There's been a lot of people who have done that. Our mayor, a lot of people have done that. It seems to me that the public is the one that they seem to listen to the most. I mean, we saw it with our landfill. It didn't quite go the way I had anticipated. However, public outcry is what gets these people in Washington to listen, because ultimately you and I are the ones who are going to reelect them or not. So I think with these properties, people have done their due diligence over the years. Sometimes they just, they brush us off. But can they brush off hundreds of thousands of us? That's the question. Keep the pressure on. If that's what we need to do to clean it up, let's write those letters. Let's do the things we got to do. I'm all for it. Anyways, you guys have a blessed night. Took enough of your time.
Thank you. I do have one more announcement. Sorry I missed it at the beginning. I wanted to give kudos to our landfill director, Kevin Sisk. Shortly after the storms and tornadoes that went through here, we offered up to our surrounding communities the ability to bring in their downed tree limbs, logs and brush and stuff at no cost for, it looks to be like about 2 week, game a 2 week time frame, proving that we are, I think one of the benefits of having a landfill, they had somewhere to take that. So they were able to bring in just strictly their tree limbs, logs, and brush from multiple communities at no charge. And I know they deeply appreciated it, and I just want to list the ones who participated. Brownstown brought in 60 tons of limbs and trees, Lincoln Park 270 tons, Trenton 48, Woodhaven 1.68 tons, and Wyandotte 4.74 tons. But the point being is we got a lot of free trees now that we can grind up and use for road cover and that type of stuff. So thank you guys for doing that. With that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Norton.
Just 3 things, I promise you. First of all, I don't really think it would be fair to go through your chair to Mr. Dobek because he hasn't been in this position a long time. When is the last time that any city official or city employee has had a actual conversation with Arkema? I guess I'm relying on you, Mr. Mayor.
That I personally...
Well, or that you knew the previous city manager was a part of?
I can't speak for Doug. Doug may have had one, but my last one that I remember... well, I'll go mine and then go to Dave. Yours was probably a lot quicker than mine. Mine was... Joe Peterson was still alive in the city of Wyandotte. So
within 4 years.
So about, yeah. And so Dave, I'm sure yours much sooner than that.
Yeah, I've had quite a few discussions with them. Last one had to be when we were trying to get that satellite recycling center down on their property. I can't remember if it was earlier this year or it was the end of last year.
Okay.
I met with them and like 4 or 5 of their attorneys.
They're out of Europe, correct?
The headquarters
The King of
is
Prussia,
in France,
Pennsylvania, I thought.
and the U.S. operations is out of King of Prussia, Pennsylvania.
Okay. And how did that conversation go?
It wasn't fruitful. We were, Carrie wasn't on it, but Randy was on board, and their attorneys gave us a very large document before they sign over the property, allow us to use the satellite recycling center. It was very much in their favor and didn't protect the city very well. That's when we switched sites.
All right, thank you. Something that was brought up was, from Mr. Dobek, was that when Councilman Workman was our city manager, we had increases of the water from 10 to 15%. I think that's it. Why did we walk away from that, doing it that way?
Through the,
Go ahead.
the mayor to Councilman Norton, I think at the time, they didn't want to pass over the heavy costs, so they were amortizing it through the water fund and trying to not continue to increase the rates. They wanted to blend it and level it out. So that, to the best of my knowledge, but, you know, that was prior administration and I wasn't here.
No, I understand that. With you being a CPA, pretty much either you pay for it now or you pay for it later, correct?
And they were just trying to blend that out.
Okay.
And that was also a time when the landfill was making larger contributions to the general fund, too.
And I think I can just add just a little bit to that. Because there were such large increases, we didn't do it all at once. You know, if it was a 10% increase, we may have done three years of 3%, you know, so we eased it in. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
You know, there was a few there that were 15 and 17%. And I bet that Councilman Workman can tell you the people screaming at him when he was city manager.
I'm
when he
sure
did that,
with his
so.
memory that he can.
Yes, Jeff.
Yes, I'd like to point out that, yes, water rates and water is getting more expensive, but it only costs the residents 1.7 cents per gallon. I just want
Per 100 gallons.
No, per gallon.
Per gallon.
0.17.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, yeah. So I knew this would come up.
Yeah.
Because I figured, I want to know what was per gallon. When you go to the store and buy a gallon of water for, you know, $3, you pay 0.00902 cents per gallon.
Your Honor.
For the water, and then you add the sewage onto that.
Your Honor,
With the new rates that start, it'll be 0.017 cents per gallon.
Okay.
So it went up from 17.02 per 1,000 gallons to 17.86 with the 5% increase per 1,000.
And that's not out of line
Not a
with
big-
Canton, Trenton and stuff I looked up. So it's, you know, we're on the higher side, but we're in line.
Before we go down the road that I've been down probably 4 or 5 times, and we have Jeff talking, and we have Sohail, real quickly, you want to give a little synopsis of how wonderful it would be to put separate water meters in, and why we wouldn't want to do that for washing cars and sewers, or in watering?
Well, the water that we purchase from Great Lakes Water Authority already comes with the sewage attached. So we are paying for it just like the residents do. That's why we can't separate it.
There you go.
So we're billed with it attached to it.
Well, if we let them separate what they use to wash their cars and water their lawns, then the city will assume the payment for their sewage, for the sewage that was attached to that.
Okay.
If I could just switch gears real quick, the golf practice facility, Mr. Toll said that we would not need any approval from the state or the county.
That's false, Councilman Norton.
Yeah, that's
And also, what he forgets to also include in there, even though that's available airspace, there would be some significant costs to clean that up, because, Kevin, how many feet of soil is on the practice facility? And
Over 30.
I'm sorry?
Over 30.
Over 30 feet.
30 feet.
There's 30 feet of soil, then a liner, and that would, you know, you'd have to purchase a new liner for the top. And
But we still need approval from Wayne County Facility Inclusion Committee.
Well, it's a little bit different when you're going up the hill, because it's already a landfill.
Right.
We've just covered it, and we've closed it in theory. To
Right.
use it for a practice facility, and a driving range. But could it? Is it possible? It is. You apply for it, and you get it, because it's already been granted.
And how many years could that extend our financial problems?
Kevin's already looked at that.
Approximately 7.
7 on top of, we're looking at 10 to 12 now.
A little less than that, but yes.
A little less than 10?
Yes.
Okay, so we could maybe push it out to 14.
14, 15, give or take.
But we're still, after that 14 or 15, we're still going to be a city without a landfill.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to end on a good note, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank you guys, my teammates. I was able to help celebrate my dad's birthday today, and you all remember when he was in hospice that we didn't think that we would hit this milestone. So I want to personally thank all of you for supporting me through those 6 months of hospice.
Thank you.
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Do I have a motion to adjourn here yet? I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Councilwoman O'Neill, supported by Councilman Norton. Motion by Councilwoman O'Neill, supported by Councilman Norton. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Workman.
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Yes.
Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Let the record show we adjourned at 9:05.